There's a truth older than kingdoms. One no man was ever supposed to hear. A truth buried beneath poetry, worship, and the soft lies of affection. You've chased women, thinking it was noble, thinking it was love. But what if that chase was your own ritual of self-sacrifice? What if, like lambs to the slaughter, you were taught to kneel, to serve, to adore her, something that was never yours to begin with? Today, you will hear what others fear to speak. A revelation so brutal, even Nietzsche whispered it. The scrolls of time are littered with warnings. Whispers from prophets, madmen, and philosophers who saw through the veil of beauty and dared to speak. But each time they spoke, the world turned away. Their words were called madness, misogyny, heresy. Yet the truth did not vanish, it simply waited for the right ears. This is not a speech for the weak, nor for the romantic. It is for the man who feels something is wrong, but could never name it. Today, we name it, and once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Oh, have been lied to. Since the moment you first felt the warmth of a woman's smile, you were told it meant you were chosen, special, desired. You were told to chase that light, to kneel before it, to devote yourself to it like a holy flame. But you were never told what that light truly was. A mirror, not a gift. A reflection of your hunger, not her grace. She is not the reward of the righteous. She is the measure of your weakness. A man who chases not her, but the illusion of completion. He runs not toward her, but away from his own incompleteness. And yet, the more he runs, the more he bleeds. For she was never built to save him, only to reveal him. The moment he bends, she judges. The moment he begs, she retreats. Like a divine punishment. The more he desires, the more invisible he becomes. Ask yourself, why does she flee from those who love her most and follow the ones who deny her warmth? Why does she surrender to the cold and mock the loyal? Because she is not the soft petal of a rose. She is the thorn. A force sent to test the architecture of your masculinity. Her beauty, her charm, her delicate danger are all instruments forged by nature, not to reward men, but to challenge them. The greater the man, the harsher the test. She does not wish to be chased. She wants to be conquered, not with words, not with flowers, but with the silent fire of indifference. The calm poise of a man who does not beg. Every time you bowed, you thought it was love, but it was trial. Every time you praised her like a goddess, you thought it was devotion, but it was self-sacrifice. And what is sacrifice without power? Nothing, just blood on the altar. And she walks away dry. Men believe they are losing her, when in truth, they are losing themselves. And she watches, not cruelly, not maliciously, but instinctively. For she too was crafted by the laws of power, and those laws do not tolerate softness. She does not want to be everything to a man. She wants to feel a man who is everything without her, a man who walks alone, not because he hates her, but because he refuses to kneel for beauty. That is the paradox of her desire. That is the secret most men never see. They chase her as if she's a crown, but she watches to see if they even deserve to wear one. She is not the end of your journey. She is the sword that guards the door. The love you seek is a leash in disguise. You thought you were searching for warmth, for loyalty, for someone to see you. But what you were really searching for was permission to be weak. You thought her love would complete you, mend you, elevate you. But that love was never meant to free you. It was meant to tame you. You did not fall in love. You fell into obedience. A man in love becomes a man on his knees. At first, it feels like flight. Her laughter, her softness, her approval, it lifts you. But soon, it begins to change. You start to ask. You start to wait. You begin to need more than she ever promised. And with each need, you surrender a piece of yourself. Your edge, your independence, your fire, it dies quietly, behind a smile. And then you are hers. But not as a king, as a pet. Do you understand what has happened to you? Do you realize what you gave up? In exchange for what you thought was love, you gave up your solitude, your clarity, your indifference, and in return, you were handed conditional affection, measured approval, emotional negotiation. You were no longer loved for who you were. You were loved for how well you served, how well you obeyed, how well you softened the voice inside you that once roared. That's the horror, the tragic irony. You chased her thinking she would honor your fire, when in fact, she was sent to extinguish it, not out of cruelty, but instinct. A woman does not admire a man who worships her. She feeds on him, slowly, softly, until he becomes what she secretly despises: dependent, predictable, and weak. And you, man, you mistake her mood for your worth. Her silence becomes your anxiety. Her attention becomes your drug. And now, you are no longer free. You are no longer sovereign. You cannot walk away. You cannot say no. You are leashed, not by force, but by hope. The hope that one day, she'll give you what she gave freely to the man who didn't ask. That's the difference. She gave it all to the man who didn't need her, and she withholds it from the man who worships her. Because the one who doesn't need love owns it, and the one who begs for it becomes its prisoner. You thought you were the exception. You thought your love was different. But you were just another flame, devoured by a colder fire. And when you looked in the mirror, you didn't see a man anymore. You saw a boy, waiting, hoping, pleading, chained. They told you she was pure, untouched, sacred. A flower in the wind, waiting to be protected. But they never told you the truth, that her virtue is not written in her soul, but carved by the hand of power. She becomes what power demands, and sheds that skin the moment power shifts. Her loyalty, her grace, her morality. None of it is constant. None of it is divine. It bends, it moves, it adapts, not to truth, but to dominance. When a man is weak, she becomes clever. When a man is unsure, she becomes manipulative. When a man is desperate, she becomes distant. But when a man commands the room, walks like he owns his name, when his presence silences her storm, she becomes soft, gentle, submissive, not because she is naturally so, but because power awakened it. You thought her goodness was a gift, permanent, unshakable, but it was only a mask, worn until the conditions changed. You saw her serve one man and reject another, and you wondered why. You blamed his looks, his money, his charm, but you never saw the true currency, power. That was the unseen weight on the scale. That was the invisible hand guiding her instincts. A woman's nature is not what you read in poems. It's what you see in shadows. What she becomes when the rules vanish. What she shows when no one is watching. That is her real virtue. And it is not pure. It is political. It is reactive. It is forged in the fire of survival. And that survival has no use for loyalty to weakness. She will wear innocence if it secures her favor. She will preach loyalty if it strengthens her image. But when the winds shift, when a more dominant presence enters, she will shed it all without hesitation. That's not betrayal. That's instinct. That's how nature wrote her role. Not as the guardian of purity, but as the mirror of strength. And if you forget this, if you fall for the illusion of eternal goodness, you will be the one kneeling at the feet of someone who is simply playing a role. You will love her mask, while she studies your posture and waits for a stronger hand to arrive. To chase her is to forget yourself. A man is not destroyed by a sword. He is destroyed by distraction. And there is no greater distraction than the woman he cannot have. The one he believes holds the key to his wholeness. The pursuit begins with excitement, with dreams, with hope. But step by step, glance by glance, touch by touch, he begins to vanish. His path fades. His hunger is no longer for greatness, but for approval. His fire no longer burns for purpose. It flickers for attention. And she sees it, faster than he does. She sees the man who once stood tall, now leaning, now performing, now adapting, for her gaze. And with every compromise he makes, she loses the very thing she once admired. For she never wanted to be chased. She wanted to be claimed. Not by desperation, but by dominance. Not by sweet words, but by a man who could walk away and not look back. Yet he keeps chasing, hoping she'll see his effort. But effort is not what awakens her desire. It's absence, mystery, indifference. Not because she is cruel, but because her instinct is wired to test. And the more he chases, the more he fails that test. He becomes the dog, not the wolf. The actor, not the king. The echo, not the voice. And now he is lost, not in her arms, but in his own emptiness. He has forgotten his mission. He has betrayed his silence. He has sold his throne for a smile. And the worst part, she does not save him. She leaves. She forgets. She moves on to the next fire. To the man who burns for nothing but his own path. You were not born to orbit her world. You were not made to beg for the warmth of her light. You are the sun, and she was meant to feel your gravity, not command it. The moment you chase, you trade your throne for chains. And the longer you run, the further you drift from the man you were meant to become. You were never meant to chase. You were meant to command. The truths spoken here are not safe. They are not soft. They are not for the world that worships comfort over clarity. But if you've listened this far, then something inside you already knew. You felt it. In betrayal, in silence, in your quiet rage. Now you see it. She is not the answer. She is the question. And only the man who remembers himself survives her. So stop running toward her and start returning to your throne.